Well, you guys agreed on that we've got enough water.
We have more than enough water in California. The problem is the state won't let us move it around, and we always need to have that insurance.
The Central Valley, there's enough water for the farmers in the Central Valley?
If they move it properly.
That's a different deal. When you overplant permanent crops, which they have done, and you don't have a permanent water supply for them, you have this upset where people are pulling down trees. So they have too many permanent plantings in population. Down here, we've been working under the Costa-Kuhl rule that you have to have a reliable water supply out 20 years in advance prior to approving any large development. They do not have a comparable thing in the Central Valley.
Is there enough water if it could get there for them to do their almonds and everything else?
What they did is, there was the State Water Project and the Central Valley Project were built to bring surface water in, so people weren't always pumping groundwater. And then the feds and the state cut off that supply. So these farmers who made a big investment in permanent crops have no choice. They're either going to kill their trees or they're going to pump groundwater. So it's a simple deal. And I'm sure we both agree on that. And that is not the problem here. The problem here is you have more than enough. There's lots of other cheaper alternatives down here. We ought to work down those so we don't do the most expensive thing.
Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you were hoping we'd get to? Brett, anything?
No, I would just say that when the State Water Project was built, Met had an entitlement of 2 million acre feet. We have not received that. Our deliveries have been cut roughly in half in 20 years. Since the 1980s until today, we've lost half of our state water supplies.
We have plenty of water. Why would they?
Because of fish, because of environmental lawsuits, NRDC and folks like that loves to sue to stop it. And you have a state water board.
But in a way, then that gets back to the argument, okay, you can say it's because they're saving fish and putting fish over, people or whatever, but that's the reality. In that case, then we don't have enough water, right? We need desal and things like that.
It's an all of the above, because we need to fix the State Water Project. Because when you fix the State Water Project, you do two things. One, you have the ability of taking water from the north end of the delta through the pumps and put it into the aqueduct. You also have the ability to transfer water north of the delta and move it through without a 20% loss. So that's the most important part of that. But the other aspect that comes with it is we need more storage. And you just saw the challenges we had statewide. We passed a water bond with $2.75 billion in hard money for storage, and then they set up this criteria that made it almost impossible to benefit from it. Fortunately, Irvine benefited from it. They got some for their Central Valley banking, but nothing for Southern California storage. So. But at the end of the day, we need more storage so we can move it.
Our storage is actually for Southern California. In fact, we've just offered Brett's MODOC board an option, to lease some of that if they believe that they're short
lease
water.
An option.
If they believe that they're short water, we'll give them an option to buy water, from us, at a very reasonable rate, without having to pay for any capital facilities. That's by working together. But the state has wet years, and the whole policy of the state has evolved to when you have wet years, capture as much water as you can, and you use it during the dry years. Southern California has done that in spades over the years. So one wet year every 5 or 6 years gets us through the next 5 or 6 years of extremely dry weather. Orange County could fill up their basin. They've been able to buy water from Met. They just don't want to pay what everyone else pays for Met water. They want a special bargain deal. If they had bought the water that was available, the Orange County basin would be full. There would be no perceived need for ocean desal. That water would be maybe $600 an acre foot, not $2,300 an acre foot. So there's a big difference. This is politics and money driving policy. And you've seen already that when the technical people, the staff, have done their job and looked at this deal, they rejected it. And the only people keeping this alive are the people who've got gobs and gobs, and I'm not saying you did, but gobs and gobs of campaign contributions that have been spread all over Orange County to get people to support the project.
Well, you know, there are those people that say the Irvine Ranch Water District has gobs and gobs of money, and that you guys are building up basically a I guess a water wholesaling operation or something, and you want to sell water. Eventually, you want to be a seller of water.
I think that we got into the water banking deal when I was on the Met board. And Ron Gastalum and I had a talk, and Met went up and leased a bunch of things. They're doing the same thing up in Kern County. They leased it, and I went, no, you should actually own the facilities, because at the end of your lease, the farmers up there are going to add on to your cost. And how can you spend hundreds of millions of dollars up there on your deal and not own the land at the end? So in 2035, their lease runs out. We'll see who did water banking right. We were trying to show people how to do it right.
Right. We've got a few other things I was hoping to touch on. This is off the wall, but I'd like to get your impression. The Three Californians proposal, the thing that was going to be on the ballot that the state Supreme Court knocked out, right? I mean, they said, anyways, it won't be on the ballot because the court knocked it out. But that proposal, as I talk to people about, it's totally impractical, it could never happen. One of the things that kept coming up is water. If you split the state up, Southern California would have no water. Now, is that true, Brad?
Actually, Southern California would have the Colorado River Aqueduct, which, if we cut off LA, because LA would not be a part of it, and the Owens Valley, we'd have that too.
And we'd have all the Sierras.
We'd have the Sierras and the.
But we wouldn't have Northern California.
Well, we'd have the State Water Project. We'd have that water coming to us.
Oh, so you're saying? Oh, so that's a contract. So you're saying? So that argument, in your opinion, is a bogus argument.
That's right. Because it's all by contract. It's all by contract.
You're sure Northern California, they won't just vigilantes won't shut the water off?
It's interesting. The State Water Board, as you heard last week, they just cut 40% of the flow on the San Joaquin, which is going to have significant impacts if they follow through with it. Not only to the farmers, but to San Francisco, because they have the peripheral pipeline where they get it free, gravity-fed, free power, and free water. They don't even have to treat their water. They just have to soften it. They're one of 3 cities in the nation that have an exemption. They don't have to treat it, which is an extra $200 to $300 to treat it. So they're going to be in real trouble with that. And that's going to diminish the supplies everywhere.
But look at the good side. And the good side is we're going to have the disproportional share of the income tax, a disproportional share of all the tidal and oil funds, a disproportional.
So you love it. You love
tax revenue going in here, and the political alignment of the people in Southern California.
So something the two of you agree on is that water would not be a project. Okay. Pierre, let me ask you, the arguments I'm hearing you make against Desal could easily be made against a solar when it comes to green energy, that it costs too much. We have plenty of oil. It's cheaper, and so but yet we decide that we want to have green energy because it's good. Isn't the idea of taking this vast ocean and using that water to drink so that we don't have to tap rivers and all that kind? Isn't that a good idea?
This is a really perverse thing, because we're going to green energy because it respects the environment. They think that we're going to cause the end of the earth as we know it. But on the other hand, the Desal thing is using a huge amount of energy right in the middle of an energy short area. So
good answer.
You're arguing my side, not
okay. All right, good answer.
But I'll give you another side to that. When the groundwater replenishment system that OCWD developed was going in, Pierre made the exact same arguments against it. It's going to be too expensive, too energy intensive, it's not going to be worthwhile. And GWRS has been a real benefit to Southern California, especially to Orange County. So
let me correct the record that
You opposed it
Wait
the
a
whole
minute,
time.
wait a minute. First
You
of all,
opposed it.
GWR, and that's a good thing for another show,
GWR is
Groundwater
groundwater
replenishment
Right.
system, yeah.
would never have happened if John Collins and Pierce Swan hadn't blocked the third outfall, where the Sand District, was going to dump all the
So
water.
you guys
so now he's
know, you
taking
guys
credit
know
for
where
it.
all the
Okay.
skeletons
So now
are
he's taking
buried.
credit for it. But you voted against it every chance you
Number
got.
two, I was on the original joint committee between OCWD and the Sand District. I was the vice chair of the Sand District at the time, and always supported using the water as a groundwater barrier, a seawater barrier to keep the ocean. But after San Diego had just passed and beat in the toilet to top deal, I didn't think that it was prudent to build this long pipeline up into Anaheim until we had run the system on the seawater barrier for a period of time. It was too much of an economic risk. I tend to be more risk adverse.
Let's close because you alluded to it on the show. I think even you were saying, Pierre, that there's advances being made in desalination technology. Let me ask you, 50 years from now, let's say 50 years, I know this is wild stuff, but 50 years from now, what percentage of Southern California water will come from desal?
I would say it's a very small percentage because we will be living in smaller lots, higher concentrations, so there'll be less outside landscaping. That's over 50% of the water. All the plumbing codes are being changed.
Okay, all right. So,
we're
what
more
do you
efficient.
think? Much more conservation efficiency. So
More
what will it be?
efficient.
5%?
And so we'll use,
yeah.
in 50 years, we will not use materially more
Will it be
water
zero? Will it be, what do you think desal will be?
We won't be using materially more water than what we're using now. So if we have more than enough now, I think we'll.
So it'll be under 10. Under
Right,
10.
right.
And what do you think?
Easily 10 to 15%.
Okay, very good. All right, gentlemen.
And he wants
thank
to
you.
build it all now.
A lot. That's right. As they say, or it wasn't actually Mark Twain, I'm told, who said it, but the
whiskey's
saying
for
that
drinking,
whiskey's
water's
for
for-
drinking, water's for
I'm
fighting.
so tired
you guys
of that,
did some
Rick.
good
I'm
fighting.
so
I know,
tired.
but I enjoyed the fighting we did.
Two things. Go to Catalina. They have a desal plant there. It's very successful there that Edison put in. But also go to
Actually, Hurricane Harbor put it in as a condition
the
of
Florida
them building
Keys
the development.
Aqueduct. The Florida Keys Aqueduct Authority has a desal plant, and I toured that about 10 years ago. And I asked them, well, what does it cost? They said about $3,000 an acre foot. And I said, how often do you run it? He said, once a month. I said, once a month? He said, it's our backup supply. And he said, they made a policy decision there would never be an excuse to be out of water. And so when they had huge hurricanes that blew through there, they were the only entity that was able to provide service. And water is, you can go without electricity for a while, you can go without natural gas, you cannot go without water.
And
so you absolutely need to have it. So that's why, from the Met perspective, it's a much bigger deal to ensure everybody has water, because we never know when people are going to roll off or roll on. When Pierre talked about wanting to roll off and not buy that, it reminded me of LA and San Diego up at Metropolitan. They're trying to say, we don't want to buy Met water anymore, we want to be water independent. They never will be. And if they always need water, they're going to roll back on Met. That's Met's role, to be that insurance provider.
But in the model that he was talking about in the Florida Keys works, and that's what they're have done in Australia. So when they need the water, they turn the plants on. There's no take-or-pay contracts. Here, you've got to take or pay. So you have to
we have
pay.
a lot more people here than
No. Well, anyway, you have to pay for the water whether you need it or not. So it displaces cheap water. The local projects program that Met runs requires you, if you take a subsidy, to offset the Met water. That's a condition of getting local projects. So you're offsetting cheap water for water that's 3 times more expensive. That's a bad deal.
And on that, Pierre, you get the last word. How's that?
Thank you
Thanks
very
again,
much.
Gentlemen.
And we're good friends.
Hey, we are. We always have fun. Hey, it's always
Shake
fun.
hands. All
It's
right.
always
There
fun.
you go.